I've traveled around the world, and guess what? Not every hotel is accessible. As a deafblind traveler, I'm always looking for hotels who get things right. So many hotels focus on the physical accessibility of the rooms, and that is one aspect of accessibility, but I think they often forget that accessibility can be super simple. A lot of it is just about listening, treating your customer right, and honoring access needs. So it doesn't have to be like high tech. You don't have to renovate your entire property in order to improve accessibility. In this video, we're going to talk about what can make a hotel accessible. What are some things that are best practices? And I'm going to tell you 5 stories of hotels that I have personally stayed in around the world that did something amazing for me in terms of accessibility. Always remember this disclaimer. Accessibility is such a journey. You're never done. There's always more to learn. There's always more to do. People with different disabilities have different access needs. So you can't really say that anything is fully accessible because it's pretty impossible. One thing that I want to note is in the United States, especially the big hotel chains, options that are ADA accessible. The Americans with Disabilities Act is the acronym ADA. You will find that option to be bookable in a lot of chain hotels in the United States. What I have found with those rooms is that they are wheelchair accessible. They usually have showers that are not bathtubs. We can roll in. They have more space in the room. So they really thought about wheelchair design. However, people who are wheelchair users are not the only profile in the disability community. And I've had a hard time getting my access needs met as a deafblind traveler because I don't want to take away a wheelchair accessible room from anywhere else. I won't book one if it's an ADA room. I'm actually looking for rooms that are hearing accessible if possible. That's the only other category I've seen that relates to my disability. I've never seen a room that's labeled for blind people or for low vision. And I don't know why that is, but I think that's a growth area in general for the industry. So now let's get into the 5 hotels around the world who did something amazing for accessibility. The first one is in the United States in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was called Inn on the Alameda. I contacted them ahead of time. I booked the hotel room in December. I was not staying there until June the following year. So this is a 6-month gap in communication. When I talked to them, I told them that I was blind and I needed ample lighting in the room. Being in a dark hotel room is super frustrating. I don't want mood lighting. I want to be able to see my stuff. It's a new space. I don't want to bump into anything. So I told them, if you have extra lamps, can you please put them in my room? That will help me so much. When I got there 6 months later, the front desk was aware of my request and let me know that it will be fulfilled. I didn't even bring it up. They brought it up. Then when I went to the coffee and tea station, because the room wasn't ready yet, one of the managers came over and greeted me and knew who I was and also said that the request had already been taken care of. When I went to the room, there were so many lamps. I've never had this many lamps in a hotel room to the point that I said, I have to film a video here. And I did it to the song Mambo Number 5 by Lou Vega because he starts counting. I did a tour of all the lamps in the room. It was incredible. This didn't cost them extra money. They were able to meet my request. And the most important thing is that I felt heard and listened to as a customer. I felt taken care of. And that is something that hotels are in the business of doing. They want to surprise and delight their customers. So that can be a really low tech way to have an accessibility with just listen and provide more lighting. Second hotel we're going to talk about is called the Moxy Lisboa Oriente. This hotel is in Lisbon in Portugal. One of the things that makes the hotel accessible is simply the location. Lisbon is notorious for having so many hills, and that alone makes it a little difficult if you are a wheelchair user to travel there or you use a mobility aid with wheels. One of the best things about this hotel is that it is in a flat area of the city. It is near the water. And so that area of the city doesn't have hills. That makes it an amazing choice if you are using a wheelchair or another mobility aid that would be helpful, like an electric scooter. Now, the reason that I stayed there is because I was co-hosting an accessible trip to Portugal with the company Portugal for all senses, and they are focused on accessible travel. It was such an amazing experience, and we welcomed a group of 8 travelers that had all different kinds of disabilities. This was a few years ago. One of the things that we had the hotel do with the blind and low vision travelers on the trip is that they offered a room tour to the travelers. They showed them how to use the elevator, how to get to their room, and then they took them around the room. Now, I wasn't present for the tours, but first of all, being offered a tour is something that, ooh, just feels so supportive for me as a blind and low vision traveler. And I just know that it's not offered often. It's not thought about in the hotel. Hotels often haven't thought about how to free up personnel for offering tours. Like, for example, when I was in Japan and there was a women's only bath area in the hotel where my partner couldn't come in and guide me around, I asked, is there someone available to give me a tour? And they had to kind of plan it and say, okay, during these hours, we have an extra personnel. So I am so glad that the Moxy was able to plan for this request, have the flexibility, have someone available to do the room tour. Now, the things that helped me with the room tour, I've already shown in a different video. So if you haven't seen the video of my process for setting up a new space to be accessible to me, to be known to me, watch our other YouTube video here. Now, for this room tour, what was awesome is that it was offered. Could it have been even better? Yes, because we learned from the participants that they did not show them how to use the air conditioning panel. They did not show them how to use the phone in the room. So that left people feeling a little bit trapped. Some people were not comfortable when they were sleeping. It was too hot or too cold. I think it was too hot. And then they couldn't contact reception. They didn't know how. And then one person had an issue with the shower. So we have to really think about the practicalities that we need to include in the room tour. People need to be able to be independent in the room. It's not just about here's the layout and here are obstacles and here are light switches, but also like here's how you can function independently in the room. So now we've highlighted a hotel that has a flat walkable location and offered room tours. Hotel number 3 that we're focused on is in New York City, one of my favorite places in the United States. It's called the AC Hotel Times Square. It is on 40th and 8th Avenue. Now, this hotel is pretty new, and when I stayed in it, I love how modern it was. It has a really good restaurant, which actually has Spanish food, but that's besides the point. What was very cool about accessibility here is that they had an option for hearing accessible rooms that were not designated as wheelchair accessible. It was its own class of room. So I could book a hearing accessible room and I stayed in one without taking away a room that was wheelchair accessible, which was fabulous. Now, some of the things that made this room a hearing accessible room was having a doorbell that connected to a flashing light. So if someone was at the door and they pushed the doorbell, there was a non-auditory way for me to know that they were at the door. The lights were flash. The other aspect of safety that I love about a hearing accessible room is a flashing light for the smoke alarm. This is really important. If I have my hearing aids out, I might not hear the kind of high pitched sound of a fire alarm or smoke alarm ringing. So having the flashing lights is awesome. And I think it was a very, very loud noise as well, if I remember correctly. I also did a video on my experience of this room. I was so thrilled that it was available. And I really haven't seen this in a lot of other hotels. So I think that these are easy changes, not really a full room renovation. So if you are a hotel and you want to invest in some upgrades, why not put out some of these doorbells and flashing smoke alarms and ask your guests with hearing disabilities what else would be helpful for them. Hotel number 4 is the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is also in the United States. I went to the Cosmopolitan because I was there for a conference. I did not choose it myself. And I didn't really know what the services or the layout or anything was going to be like. But one of the things that I liked the most about being there that really was accessible for me is that if I wanted to contact reception, I didn't have to use a room phone and call that. Or a lot of times what I do is I look up the phone online and I call my cell phone because it connects to my hearing aid. But phone calls are really hard for me with my hearing disabilities. They, at the Cosmopolitan, had a way to text when you needed something. They had this service set up. So I could just text away and get my needs met and make requests. And they were very responsive. It worked. They were responsive. And that's the other thing, because sometimes companies or organizations set up texting or chat and you don't quite get the helpful responses or there were delays, but it wasn't like that. It worked really, really well. And I think this is helpful for lots of people. I'm sure it doesn't just benefit people with hearing disabilities. That's how accessibility always works. You start it for one group of people, and then so many people benefit that you didn't even design for. So I love that experience. The other thing that was very cool when I was at this hotel is that the conference that I was attending was a disability focused one. So they had a partnership with NaviLens, and NaviLens is an app for blind people that is a wayfinding app. And you basically have a QR code that's super colorful and big. And with the NaviLens app on your phone, you can scan around and identify if there's a code nearby. When you find one of those, there's information encoded in there. It reads it aloud to you, and it also displays it on the screen at a dark mode. So it's really easy for me to read. Now, what they had NaviLens for that I remember using a lot was the elevator banks. The elevator banks, because this was a big hotel, had labels of these are the floors the elevators go to in this hallway. I think there were 3 of them. But with the NaviLens code, you could find out which floors that elevator bank was going to, and that could help you get to your room independently. So NaviLens is something that I think any hotel could invest in, just putting up NaviLens codes to label the different rooms and any other helpful information for wayfinding that your guests can use. Once you put it up, the people can keep using it. So I love to amplify NaviLens as a wonderful investment that you can make in accessibility that is not going to be a big, huge lift. Again, this isn't renovations. This isn't something that is going to take a lot of time and money. It's possible to do. All right. Hotel number 5 is in Chile. I have to put another international one in here. This hotel was called Casa Solcor, and it is in San Pedro de Atacama, the Atacama Desert. And San Pedro de Atacama is where most people stay if they're doing a trip to the Atacama Desert. Casa Solcor, beyond being a beautiful property, what I really appreciated about them is that they took initiative to support me as a disabled traveler. I didn't even know what I could request. I didn't make any specific request ahead of time, but I did let them know that I had limited vision. And I think I was asking some questions about the property. For example, I knew that it was kind of a spread out hotel, so I was asking them about the lighting at night. And so they took it upon themselves to assign me a room that I didn't have to walk around the property too far to get to. It was near the front of the property, and it was also able to be accessed without any stairs, because they did have some places where you had to go up and down stairs in order to get to different areas of the property. But I didn't have to do any stairs to get to the room. That was awesome. Assigning a room that's easier to get to is an amazing way to make customers and disabled travelers feel heard, feel valued, and feel thought of. I hope you enjoyed the look at 5 hotels and the stories about what works for me about them. Let's get into now some general accessibility best practices for hotels. Having elevators. Wonderful. Wonderful if a hotel can have an elevator, especially with auditory and visual information combined. Braille on the buttons, labeling the floors. Sometimes they announce the floors, but I also like it when I can see the number somewhere, because auditory doesn't really work for me. So providing the information in multiple ways is perfect. Now, also in the room, the hotel rooms themselves, making them spacious with a layout that's easy to navigate without a lot of obstacles. Simple, that's an easy way to make rooms more accessible. When I'm in a room, I want to have 2 types of shades. I want to have sunshades that allow light to come in, but they reduce the brightness. And then I also want to have a way to block out all the light. So blackout shades or blinds. Having those two options is really helpful because then I can adjust the amount of light that's coming in and customize it to my needs. Location, location, location. Like we spoke about earlier, a hotel that's located in a walkable flat area that is well lit at night is going to be more accessible than a hotel that is not. Having breakfast included might not be something that you think of as supporting accessibility, but it totally is because I have limited energy to navigate the world. I get listening fatigue. If breakfast is included at a hotel, I don't have to go outside until later in the day. I don't even have to get dressed if I don't want to. I can just put on my comfy clothes, go right down to breakfast, and I'm navigating every morning the same environment, the same layout. So it reduces the amount of decisions that I have to make. And so that is supporting accessibility. I really, really love when hotels have breakfast included. It saves energy for the exploration and the rest of the day. Another aspect of accessibility is in the bathroom. Having showers instead of tubs is much more accessible for me. Stepping into a tub can feel really dangerous, especially if it's slippery. I also love when hotels have grab bars as a default. Everyone can benefit from a grab bar. When you think about travelers, we have a lot of older adults who travel, and grab bars can just help them stabilize. Awesome. Awesome, easy thing to do. Hooks in the bathroom are also really helpful because then everything can be organized. Having hooks makes things easier to navigate. That's kind of like about reducing stress because when things don't have a place and you're in a temporary home, then sometimes you can't find things. Sometimes you don't feel comfortable. So I love when there's ample hooks and places to hang up all my towels and all the things I need. And the last best practice that I want to talk about is having the light switches by the bed. If I can get into bed and then turn off the lights, I have the lights for navigating the room. If I'm the last one to go to sleep after my partner, I don't have to memorize or fumble around in the dark. I'm always trying to avoid accidents. When I don't know a space that well, that could be dangerous if I have to turn off the lights and then make my way to bed. So I always love when there are light switches right by the bed. What are some accessibility features in hotels that really work for you? Did anything from this video resonate with you? I would love to hear what you look for when you're booking hotels. All right, stick around for more inaccessible travel. I'm Blindish Latina.